about why would we do what we do, what is it about the textile industry that encourages us to do what we do, I would say if you currently study what are our textiles made of, so right from your carpets, cars, clothes, shoes, textile is almost everywhere. We as human civilization use close to 111 million tons of fibers. And if you study those 111 million tons of fibers, which are more than the stars in the galaxy, you would realize that majority of this is a sum of three sorts of fibers, which is number one, polyester. Polyester is nothing but plastic and a major source of microplastic, which kind of is not only an environmental hazard, but also if you kind of study, you would realize that even human stomach now has traces of microplastic, which means it's also a health hazard. If we study cotton as a fiber, it is beautiful fiber when it comes to end of life. However, it is now a widespread GMO seed, which takes a lot of water. Around more than 10,000 liters of water can go in making 2 pairs of denims. Or even if you compare the pesticide intake of that crop, it is highly hazardous and is causing generational losses to land. And the third fiber is generally man-made cellulose. So all your viscose rayon would fall into this category. And the sad part is that it comes through the forest, which leads to deforestation, right? The trees, and further the chemical processing is often hazardous in nature. So if you study this, you would realize that just like how oil and gas industry was demanding the world to shift to alternative fuel, our materials industries, textile industry is also demanding that we shift to alternative materials. And that's why we thought that how can we make these alternative materials? It's that part which can bring down the environmental footprint of this industry by a huge margin. Having said that, in our case, the cherry on the cake is that we use agriculture waste as our source, meaning we solve the dual problem of agriculture waste as well as textile materials. And that kind of makes it a very attractive opportunity. Textile and fashion is highly moving towards sustainable conversation. Clients are demanding it. And this material could be one of the highest speaking material in those segments. Sure. So, if I were to answer the first part of this question, what kind of waste materials do we use? I would say imagine a farmer growing this crop for other purposes. It could be industrial purpose or a food or a medicine. Once they have harvested that crop, they are left with certain kinds of biomasses. We have our own science involved there. There are certain biomasses which we have well mapped and works pretty well with our proprietary technology. We source this left out biomass globally. We pay for it, creating an additional income for the farmer. And that is something that we convert into a natural fiber. So our source is generally the left out biomass or a plant residue of another crop. And then these fibers, of course, because the way it is made, you can signify the advantage or impact of these fibers into three parts. One is environmental sustainability, so right from water, carbon to recyclability, everything is taken care of. Other is social inclusivity. It's a supply chain which is very progressive and creates additional income for the people involved. And the last part is about functionality. How does it affect when you use it, right? So it is very skin friendly. It is something where there are no microplastics being released. In fact, it has some additional properties like it is naturally antibacterial. And when you combine its structure with a naturally antibacterial property, you would see that these fabrics are able to fight sweat and smell much better. They are quite a fabric or a fiber which can help you with multiple seasons, whether it's summer out there or winter out there. So these fabrics are quite friendly when it comes to human health. The toxicity levels are way less when it comes to processing as well. So holistically, it is sustainable as well as geared towards a healthy environment. Well, so it has been an interesting journey for us as a company. I started working on this around 4 years ago. The company is now legally working since last 2 years. And in the last 2 years, we have been able to do a lot of progress on the technology as well as on the execution, right? So sometimes these technologies of future work pretty well in lab and it might not work in the actual factory scenario. So what we have been able to do is we have been able to move this from pilot scale into a commercial scale, and we have been build one of its kind factory now, which would soon be ready to do the commercial production at a large scale, leading to close to 2,500 tons of yarns a year. In the future, I see that we need to move towards decentralized manufacturing. So in the next 3 to 5 years, we would be replicating these production lines closer to different agriculture hubs and textile hubs. we definitely intend to make sure that these materials reach millions of wardrobes and homes out there. Right, we do understand that creating awareness about this material is going to be of essence when it comes to the final consumer. So, our strategy is often two pronged. One is we do make an effort to talk about these issues and the goodness of these materials publicly, whether it's through public events or whether it's through social media. But we also work closely with the existing textile chain players. So, whether it's a value chain player, a fellow value chain manufacturer, or the brands directly, to make them understand the beauty of this material. So, you would see some of these global brands use these materials into their key collections and talk about how beautiful this is in short time. So, it is both through a B2B channel, but also understanding the onus of creating the awareness directly in the consumer interface. So, in terms of material pricing, it is often tough to get a very attractive prices early on because there's no scale of economies. However, we have been able to achieve a beautiful pricing. It's not anywhere more expensive than the existing range of pricing. So, it's pretty close to what linen fabric looks like, maybe slightly more expensive, but it's definitely way more affordable than silk or merino wool as materials out there. So, in terms of pricing, it is very well placed in the existing range. I wouldn't say that it's the most affordable product out there, but it's definitely something that accounts for environmental audits and other things, and it's well priced to be adopted. In terms of the feel, as you asked, it is a feel which feels like a very luxurious natural touch. So, you can imagine making carpets out of this, or tabletops or curtains out of this. You can also imagine your shoes or dresses or even shirts being made out of this. The feel would be closer to what cotton or linen like natural fibers have, and not closer to polyester, which feels a little less comfortable when it is closer to skin. So, it's kind of a very luxurious natural feel that you're about to witness. Right, so I really think that the new materials segment is at a very nascent stage, and when we talk about competition, this is the high time that we look inwards and make a value proposition that is acceptable, right? So that is what we have done, and we kind of adopt a 4-step process to make sure that this is something which is highly attractive as a fabric. So one is of course the desirability angle. So entire environmental sustainability, right from water, carbon to end of life or sourcing, is highly sustainable. That makes it as highly desirable product, even it is inclusive, right? So that is our first thing to ever look into a fabric, like is it desirable from the goodness angle, from the functional angle. The other thing that comes into picture is that there are some materials which are highly desirable, but is it feasible to make them? Are there technologies in place? So the way we have designed our production lines and technologies, it makes sure that it is highly convenient to adopt these materials, and hence for the textile supply chain to make sure that these materials could be mainstreamed in the times to come. The third question that comes in is about viability. Would you be able to build right economic models around it? So we have worked hard to make sure that the pricing and other things are attractive enough to match the desirability that we have been able to build. And the last question that comes into the picture is, can you scale it? Can you make sure that you can make this possible for millions out there to be used as a material? So the way we have been working with our application versatility, or the way we have been working with our supply chains in that matter, I think we are a highly scalable material. And these 4 things make it a case where we are sure that this is something which can be adopted by millions, because an entire infrastructure and a supply chain has been aligned to meet a desirable consumer ask in this case.